4 hours. We speed racing this brisket, and it's gonna still have that jelly. It's still gonna have that shake. So the meats I get from local butchers. This one came from local distributor that I use. It's a Angus, which is a great cut. You have 3 different grades. You have choice, you have Angus, and then you have prawn. And then if you really want to go all out, you could do a Wagyu. That's really a tender piece of meat, but you're going to probably be spending like $10 a pound. Looking for some nice marble lines in my brisket. That's the fat content that's in the meat. When that starts cooking down, it's going to actually tenderize the meat while it's cooking. So that's a good thing to look for. Finding the right quality meat, you could always go to your local Costco's. If you're really not sure of what a good quality is, ask your butcher. They are very knowledgeable. They're the ones doing this each and every day. Sometimes you might think you put your best effort into cooking a good piece of meat and it comes out not the way you had anticipated it to come out. And that might be because just the quality of meat that you're dealing with. Getting a nice sized brisket actually cooks better for me in my style of cooking, but they do have where you could just buy flats or a smaller brisket, maybe at 8-10 pounds. What I'm doing here is I'm kind of trimming the extra fat off. I don't go too crazy because I want the fat to stay on the meat because it does help in the cook. I kind of just take a slicing knife. I find that to be the best way to get some of this silver skin. The silver skin is that light membrane that kind of sits on top of the meat. And the reason why you want to take that off is to make sure that your seasonings penetrate into the meat. Now I'm going to go through kind of leveling out this brisket so it cooks evenly. So we see we have a low point here and then it kind of shoots up pretty high. So I'm going to get some of this fat content off the side. It might look like I'm taking off so much, but look, it's just a big blob of fat. This fatty section of the brisket is the point. That's where your burnt ends are from. So you don't really need a whole lot of fat content there. The more you get the brisket even, the more even the cook will be. Also, what you can do with a lot of this extra trimmings is you can make chilies, stew, things like that. Haven't really had the need to do it at the restaurant. It's usually steaming hot in Phoenix, so chili is not really a thing that you would really want on a 120-degree day. What I'm doing is I'm just throwing on my first layer. This is kind of like a salt base that I'm throwing on. I want to get that into the meat. It helps tenderize it. Rub that in a little bit. But you know, brisket and beefs don't need a lot of attention like most people would think. I like to do my briskets Texas style, and that's just basic salt and pepper. And so I'm going over it right now with a little kosher salt. Rub that in a little bit. And you don't really have to worry about the fat side too much because you won't penetrate the fat. You could also use some mustard to keep the seasoning on, but I've just kind of like pat it in and then put it on a sheet tray, and that's it. Texas style brisket. Let's put this baby on the smoker. I got that nice blue smoke that I was looking for. It's nice and controlled. We're actually at 400 degrees. I'm gonna be cooking at about 375 to 400, hot and fast. You know, when you're doing it low and slow, a typical brisket could take anywhere to 8 to 12 hours. This will be done in 4 hours. I like to start my brisket with the fat side down, let some of that fat render off of the brisket, and then when I wrap it in the butcher paper, then I swap it around to the fat side up. Because when it's wrapped, now your fat is kind of like basting your brisket through the finishing process. We had this brisket on now for like the last 2 hours. It's been sitting at 325 to 350. It's got a good amount of smoke. We don't want to over smoke it, and we want to speed the process up. What happens with the brisket, once you start cooking it, about 150, 160, it goes into a holding temp where the brisket doesn't move out of there. So to speed the process up, you wrap it, and that helps intensify the heat and gets it past that Texas crunch. Gonna wrap it in some peach butcher paper. You always want to wrap it nice and tight. That will help it get through the stall that the brisket likes to go through. I like the butcher paper around the brisket because it will keep that bark. If I put it in straight tinfoil, 9 times out of 10, I will just lose my bark. But if I put it in butcher paper, then put it in tinfoil, I tend to keep my bark and my color. This baby's ready to go right back on the smoker. Now I'm gonna cook it fat side up, let the fat and the juices start basting into that meat. All right, we're gonna get this baby right back on there. Again, fat side up is the name of the game. 350 the rest of the way. About another 45 minutes to an hour, I'll check it. We're looking for a finished temp of 202, and then we'll be good to go. So this has been cooking for about 4.5 hours. It rests for about an hour. So again, hot and fast was the way we cooked this one. And it's always important to let your brisket rest so the juices can come back down into the meat. And then you got that jiggle right there. Woo! Yeah, look at that. Cut across the grain. I'm gonna just cut it open for you. I'm gonna get in tight. Juice is just flowing right out. Nice red ring around it. You're just supposed to have a little resistance, and then it pops right off. You taste that smoke flavor, the salt and the pepper. Good stuff.